I didn't want to be one of those top chefs that went out on the world tour and was just cooking in a different city every weekend. I wanted to be one of the top chefs that actually was a chef. I'm good at cooking. I'll go do that. Everything you do at your restaurant represents you and your restaurant. The way you treat the people around you is how they're going to treat your customers. If you are providing an environment from which they can learn and get better and enjoy their job, they're going to be able to pass that on to the people walking in the front door.
What would you tell another up-and-coming chef who wants to eventually run their own restaurants?
Dude, a vision and what you want to do is awesome, but you need to be able to apply math to it. 2, everyone wants to tell you how terrible you are. And if you're not firm in your belief in what your vision is, you can get rattled pretty easily.
You won Top Chef in season 11. How did you feel? What changed about you going forward?
I don't think I took into consideration how many people actually watched Top Chef. I was like, oh, cool, a cooking show. I'm good at cooking. I'll go do that. And people take that seriously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
like really seriously. It's like, oh, this is a game show, guys. Yeah. We're in a game show where we get to cook food. Like, everybody relax. Everybody relax.
Nick, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. I am excited about your perspective and the stories that you bring. I think, in this show, we have a lot of different kinds of guests who've worked at all different kinds of restaurants, and you represent someone who is at the heart of what we do, and that is the actual operator of a restaurant who's in the trenches. Before I dive into what really kind of is a good through line to the title of this podcast, which is The Restaurant Reset, there's a full circle moment to your story that almost feels like cinematic. So it was a fantastic documentary, King George. The ending of that documentary, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, and you should still really watch this if you get a chance, but the ending shows you cooking inside the empty, about to open Laurel, which is just this profound moment. And, it's really kind of like the mentor handing the baton to the next guy. And now, 12 years later, you've closed that original location. And even you've said you hoped it could become kind of the launch pad for another chef, not just some casualty of something catastrophic. And this idea of kind of mentorship, of handing things down, is something like, kind of like similar to in sports, they have like coaching trees where head coaches kind of bring in all these other coaching trees. Similar things happen in restaurants and have been for a long time. And you come from a great line of coaching trees. And I know for you, if the industry stopped measuring you by Top Chef New Orleans or Michelin lists, and instead measured you by what you call your tree, the people you grew, the standards you passed down, what would you want that tree to look like 5 years from now? And what did you do during the wind down of Laurel to make sure that your team actually landed well?
Well, first, I want to say thanks for having me, Andy. Love being here. Second, you touched on a lot of things there. I think that was a really cool documentary at a really cool time, done by a woman who lives close to Philadelphia, whose original idea was to document the closing of Le Bec Fin.
Right. Big deal.
For those of you guys who don't know, Philadelphia, Le Bec was the epitome of fine dining in the city for about 42 years. And I was fortunate enough to be the chef there for the last 4 of the last 6 years. It went on to stay open for an additional 2 years into a couple different reiterations and revamps, and it just never kept going. But she started the documentary thinking that she was documenting the closing of this iconic restaurant. Mm-hmm. But then the documentary slowly morphed into this idea of a relationship between a mentor and a mentee. And, for the chef's reputation precedes him. Anybody who's from Philadelphia knows him as a wild, eccentric artist, otherwise known as an asshole. So it's he was immensely talented and really, really fantastic at getting the most out of people. But we all recognize that, like, maybe this day and age, he probably wouldn't have survived. The way he treated people and acted to people and talked to people and pushed people, it'd be tough. It'd be tough for him to survive in the 2000s. That being said, it was a really cool moment in time for me because, outwardly, when it comes to publicity, there was kind of like this whirlwind of things going on at the same time. We had opened Laurel, the documentary came out, and Top Chef finally aired. Those three things happening in succession, kind of
Wow.
relatively in the same 6 month period. On top of that, we opened Laurel and it was very quickly named best restaurant in the city. We got 4 bells, like the highest rating that you can get in the city. We were in GQ for top 10 restaurants in America, James Beard Awards, all this other stuff. So there's really weird um, whirlwind of things going on. But the good news was I had this little tiny restaurant that I got to focus on. So I get to walk into this 150 square foot kitchen every day and just focus on like the task, which was nice. Um, so that was kind of like the background of the documentary. And I think that um, Erica, the woman who produced it, did a really great job of transitioning from the closing of a restaurant into like this kind of beautiful story. Um, I think the way she phrased it, I like, is kind of like a lion in winter. And it was really cool. It was really emotional. I think when you're in it and she's filming for 6 years and not really understanding what's going on, but once you see the finished product, it was pretty profound. Saying all that, getting back to the second part of that question, which is kind of like, yeah, the coaching tree. I think that a lot of people overemphasize, especially now, our media cycle's so quick. And there are so many awards and so many lists and so many things that you can be on every single day. Um, but even if you get a top 10 list of magazine X, like that news cycle is going to last 6 to 8 hours. And then everybody's on to the next thing. So that stuff becomes less and less important, which is good. I think that's a good thing. I think the idea of the celebrity chef is kind of like dying down. I think people are understanding we're not, we're just people who have a job that most of us really enjoy. We're in the position where a lot of us, our job is just to make other people happy, which makes me happy. Hospitality is like one of my favorite things in the world. And again, you either have it or you don't. It's either in your blood or it's not. It's a personality trait. It's not something you can actually. I don't believe it's something you can actually learn. Um, but I think being able to focus on the next generation of cooks and chefs and leaders is really, really important, especially in this day and age of trying to figure out like what do we actually stand for as chefs, as business owners, and as mentors.
Yeah, but break down then, because I agree. I think there's something to the mentorship that becomes so important, especially as leaders. Like leaving your mark has got to include, people that come after you. What do you want that to look like for you personally? Like, what do you see as important from your time being a leader, and especially as you stepped into this new chapter, thinking about kind of doing that again? What are ways that people mentored you well that helped you then pass it down to the next people, and what do you value in terms of passing down to those people specifically?
I think I learned a lot from, I mean, it's hard for me to say that I had a mentor,
Okay.
unfortunately. Chef Perrier was a great chef. He was a terrible business owner. He wasn't a great mentor. He wasn't a great people person. I wouldn't take any of his values as to how to treat your employees in your business and apply it to what I do. Um, Prior to that, when I was in New York, I was working for Rocco DiSpirito. Again, an immensely talented chef, but the way he treated his businesses and his people, I wouldn't apply that to anything I do. If I was going to look 10 years down the road and the people that work for me, I would want them to be first and foremost happy with their career choice and decisions that they made, obviously successful. And I also want them to recognize that, like, again, the way you treat the people around you um, is how they're going to treat your customers. So
Mm.
if you are providing an environment from which they can learn and get better and enjoy their job, they're going to be able to pass that on to the people walking in the front door. We constantly harp on this at work, the old ripple effect, where if I'm on the floor as a server and I say something rude to a busboy, it's going to deflate that busboy that much. But then the busboy passes it on to the food runner by deflating that food runner, who says it to the dishwasher, who pushes on the porter, who says something to a cook. It's just this ripple effect that happens throughout the entire restaurant. So we try to suss that out every time we can. We talk about teamwork and communication every single day, um, to the point where it's like it gets I know my team gets annoyed with it, but again, there's a reason why we're successful at what we do. There's a reason why we talk all the time. There's a reason why everybody knows everything all the time. We're all going to have bad days. The best part about our job is that you can leave that at the front door. Focus on something completely different that involves you using your body, using your hands, using your mind, and occupy that space for 8 to 12 hours, however your shift is. And then go back, decompress, think about what your problems are, and deal with them when you have the moment to do that. But when you're in work, it's so, I won't say intense, but it's occupying. It occupies every part of your body. So you can kind of leave all your problems at the door, thankfully, and focus on something else for a time being, which is really nice. Um, I think that the people that have worked for me already and have gone on to open up their own restaurants, like obviously I'm incredibly proud of them. But most importantly for me, what it looks like right now is the best people are the ones who are successful. And using that word best, I don't mean the best cooks. I mean, best overall, all round people. They're the nicest. They work the hardest. They're the most respectful. They have a process. They have a thought throughout their day. They have intention in everything they do. And those are the ones who I've seen so far, because I'm still relatively, you know, young
Yeah.
for a chef.
Yeah.
Like, those are the ones so far that I see that are actually out in the world doing things that are successful. They are making their own mark right now.
It's interesting. I want to kind of go back to something you touched on because you're right. And especially if you've ever watched any kind of, besides just King George, like uh, any other, chef documentary or even the dramatized styles that the movies or, The Bear or any of the ways that, chefs are portrayed in popular culture and in reality, it reflects reality that you mentioned is you just get these firebrands, these guys who will come into the kitchen and yell and be, seemingly unreasonable, but they're geniuses, when it comes to executing the food, knowing good taste, knowing good items. And it's interesting to hear you share that perspective of you never really felt like you had a mentor because it seems like you worked for people who were brilliant, but not necessarily took traits that you felt I want to go pass that down to my team. And you mentioned, a lot of it is the way that those people seem to communicate, right? I mean, even if you even look thinking about watching you and King George, like just the way that he would speak to so many people and thinking about the way you speak to other people you could just see how different it was, and maybe there's a generational piece there, old school, new school, something like that. I'm curious about how you teach communication in a restaurant, because it seems like a lot of what you were kind of unpeeling a little bit were the way that we communicate with one another, with our guests, with this throughout our workday matters, because bad communication can create a bad ripple effect, but good communication can create a good ripple effect to a certain extent. What do you, as a leader in your restaurant, teach when it comes to communication? Are there little things that you do to communicate? Because we have a lot of people who work for big restaurant brands that listen to the show. We also have a lot of small operators that listen to the show, and they probably hear that and they're sitting on every word of like, tell me how you do this. Unpack teaching communication in the restaurant if you can.
Yeah, I just want to be perfectly clear. I'm not an angel by any stretch of the imagination. I've been, you know, I'm a relatively intense person, especially when I'm in the kitchen, especially when we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and
Yeah.
at such a high level. But I think that working under Chef Perrier, despite the fact that I didn't agree with a lot of the things he did in his personal life and with the way he treated the business and the people in this business, I understood what he was trying to do, and I very quickly, even at a young age, I think I was 28 when I took over as the chef of Lebec Fin, I understood that I was the conduit between the vision and the people who had to execute that vision. So it really made me focus on, um, how can I present this to the staff, make it palatable, get them excited about it, and get them to go sell it? And it's not just a plate of food, it's not a tasting menu, it's not a bottle of wine. It's the idea of the vision of the entire restaurant. How can I get them to sell what we're doing and why we're doing it is better than anything else you're gonna get out there in any other restaurant in the city right now. I think that was really, really valuable for me. It was a really, steep, hard climb, but a great learning experience for myself at a young age because I really learned how to convince other people what we were doing and why. When I understood that the more I communicated with them, the more detailed oriented and the more confident I was in what I was trying to present to them, the easier it was for them to sell. Because the more information they have, the more confident they are. The more confident they are, the more comfortable they feel in their skin, and the easier it is for them to push who we are and what we do. And I used those lessons as I moved on into my own businesses, without applying the other half of it of the yelling, screaming, throwing plates all the time.
Sure.
It was like, don't get me wrong, I've lost my shit. I've, raised my voice. I get upset, especially when I don't mind mistakes. I despise incompetence.
Mm.
I don't mind showing you something. I don't mind showing you something twice. But if I have to show you something 3 times, that's when we have a problem. That just means you're not paying attention and you don't care. And if you don't care, then we don't really have a use for you. This not saying that you can't go off and go do something different, but you don't care about this. So if you don't care about this, you're not going to be useful to the entire company. We need people who understand what we do, why we do it, and actually value it. So there's a woman that I worked with. Her name was Jane Fryer. Um, she was in charge of Laurel for the past 8 or 9 years, and she kind of just really changed the way I viewed the hiring process. She was just so incredible at identifying talent, and by talent, it was just her whole thing was uh, people who want to work hard, people who are inherently nice. That's it. If you
Mm.
find those 2 qualities in somebody, you're gonna be able to teach them anything, show them anything. They're willing to learn, they're willing to grow, they're willing to get new tasks, they're willing to be pushed as long as they have those 2 characteristics. And you can tell she gave me a couple of little tips of, like, how to be able to tell quickly if someone's inherently nice. Just their facial expressions, their body mannerisms, their confidence, and it's really changed the way that I've identified and hired people throughout the past, 10 or 12 years.
Can you help us unpack some of those traits? What I would love to know. What's that secret sauce on immediately telling if someone's inherently nice?
Just the way they present themselves, the tone in their voice. There should be like some form of a calmness and confidence in their voice. There should be a calmness and confidence in their body language. They're applying for a job that they want to be working for. So they're
Mhm.
showing up early. They're presented well. And by presenting well, we mean you're dressed properly. Your clothes are pressed. You don't have to have fancy clothes on to look nice. You don't have to be dolled up to have your hair done well, to have your pants pressed, to have clean shoes on. These are all things that are super easy. But if you care about an interview, these are the things that you're going to look at before you walk in the door. Also, to us, that expresses that you're detailed oriented.
Yeah.
And if you're detailed oriented, then we're already going to be able to show you what details you're going to need to make this job successful. Um, I think that having open conversations in interview as opposed to like a list of questions that you ask all of your people is a lot easier. Where are you from? Okay, cool. I like my question is where are you coming from? Now, I like that because it's an open-ended question.
It should be open-ended. They could say, "I'm coming from Charlotte," or it could be, "I'm coming from a bad morning. I had all," you can get all kinds of answers.
So honestly, what it does for me, I like it when people answer, um, if I say, "Where are you coming from?" and they say where they came from this morning, where they live right now, more importantly to me is where they tell me, "Oh, I grew up in Massachusetts." I'm like, "Cool, you identify more with home than anything else." If I say, "Where are you coming from?" and you're like, "Oh, I was recently working at this pizza place down the shop," you identify yourself more with your work that you do.
Mm,
Also very, very good. If you're telling me about, uh, I went and got Dunkin' Donuts this morning. That to me is like, all right, you're not understanding like the breadth of this problem. But again, that question and answer leads to so many other different discussions that you can go to and find out more about a person and whether or not you want to spend time with them. Think about it. Like how many hours a week are you spending at work?
yeah.
In a fine dining restaurant, especially if you're in charge, you should expect to be there 75 to 95 hours a week. You wanna surround yourself with people that you want to be around. So it is like a fun cultural thing to find people that are like-minded. By like-minded, you mean hardworking, dedicated, detailed-oriented. Also, I like people who can be pragmatic enough where we can enjoy our entire day. We can have fun, listen to music, continue prepping, move quickly through a bunch of stuff, but then at 5:30 you can flip that switch and you can put those blinders on and your job is this. For the next 6 hours, your job is this, and that's it. Nothing else in the entire world happens. Your phone's not in your pocket. You're not thinking about what's going on in the outside world. You're thinking about these 44 pieces of fish that I need to cook perfectly for the next 5 hours. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. So I work now in restaurant technology, but I worked in all different kinds of restaurants, and I that's one of the things I actually really miss a lot, especially now that I work in corporate America for all intents and purposes, and you're jumping from meeting to meeting, and there's emails and Slacks and things are constantly pinging you and all that, and I sometimes just sit down and I go, man, I miss those, like, 6 hours of dinner shift where, like, I didn't exist except just to be present in the moment for the next thing I had to do and just deliver there, and whatever was happening on my phone just didn't matter because there's no time to look at that. You just work, you're just doing the work, and there's something that's like you almost enter, like, a trance state, and you, like, come out of your shift and you're like, "Oh, yeah, that happened." And then there's just something about that that I love, and when you've done it, I think, you grow to kind of remember it. It's something that's so counter to so much of other types of jobs that people have that I think, breeds, really, really strong people and strong leaders.
Yeah, like my thing is now is like we're getting into that same position where we have 3 outlets now. We're building another hotel, about 150 employees. I do find myself behind a computer and in a meeting a lot more often than I am holding a knife. So like my mental reset is like I'm either making pasta or butchering. I can butcher for hours on end and just be happy because I know I can just play some music and focus on the
Mm,
task. To that point, Chef Perrier used to wash dishes. If we were having like a really hard service and he was mentally like frazzled, he would literally walk over, send the dishwasher home, and just sit there and wash dishes for 4 hours straight. And I knew I was like, oh man, that's a problem because like
yeah.
he's having a rough night. If he needs to go in the dish tank and wash dishes to calm himself down, and he's there for 4 hours, like we're having a rough night. But you need that. Like, I love those task oriented things, especially when you're using your hands, because it's like especially if you have a knife in your hand, you better be focused.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, or if you're
You can't
standing
be
behind,
thinking about something else.
yeah, if you're standing behind a stove, like you better be focused. You're gonna hurt yourself. You're gonna hurt somebody. You're gonna mess something up.
Yeah, that's really good. You mentioned a little bit kind of getting into the business side of things. I'd love to shift the conversation there a bit. You know, you you kind of lived every type of a model of a fine dining restaurant, whether you're going from a la carte, you're going to a tasting menu, you're going back to a la carte. What did each format of that teach you about profitability and labor? I think a lot of people would be curious to know about some of your business learnings here because they're in the same boat. And if you were opening a new spot this year, which model of that would you choose first to open with?
That's actually a good question. I don't know the answer to that because I've had so much fun doing all of the different things.
Right.
I will say this, what I've learned, especially over the past 5 years, I love fine dining food and I love tasting menus.
Hmm.
I don't know how much more um, of a palate our general public has for that anymore.
Yeah.
We certainly saw that towards the end of Laurel because we were we were having so much fun for so long because we were doing a 7 or 9 course tasting menu. We got to do whatever we want. We wrote the menu essentially every day. We were constantly changing things. The public gave us their trust to be able to show up and sit down, and we wouldn't even give you a menu at the beginning of the meal. You'd sit down and we'd say, "Hey, do you guys have any allergies? No. You guys anything you don't like to eat? No, I don't like mushrooms. All right, cool." And then we just go and we cook for you and we present it to you. We talk to you about it. Blah 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 blah. You either like it, you don't like it. You don't like it. That's fine. That's your opinion. Like we have a bunch of talented people working really hard, making great dishes. We know this is good. That being said, if you don't like it, that's a you problem. It's not an us problem. It's we work in a subjective field. You're not going to like all the stuff that we make.
Absolutely.
I'm not a big Beatles fan. That doesn't mean the Beatles suck. It means that I don't like the Beatles. I don't listen to them. That's it, right? That being said, like after a while, cooking like that, cooking little tiny dishes, being hyper focused on new ingredients, new techniques, new plating. It's really, really fun, but it also just gets like, I don't know, man, like I like making pizza. Like, I like through the pandemic, um, we were closed. I think the city shut us down 3 or 4 times. And at one of the times that they closed
Man.
us, we turned the restaurant into a donut shop and made really, really beautiful donuts 4 days a week. I would make 1,500 donuts a day. We would open at 8 AM. We would sell out by like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I would get the same response from the general public about making a really great donut as I would about doing a 7-course tasting menu. So it really started changing my idea about what I can do with food. It's like as long as I'm super focused on what I'm doing and trying to make the best version of something, people are gonna be happy. They're gonna be happy at a great sushi restaurant, with a great donut, with a great piece of pizza, with a great fine dining tasting menu. Like, just figure out a way to make people happy. More importantly, on the business side of that, to open a small, tiny, 22-seat, tasting menu focused, high-end fine dining restaurant is the same amount of energy as opening a $7 million à la carte Italian restaurant that is more accessible. You're putting the same amount of work in, you're doing the same amount of research, same amount of recipe development, the same amount of everything that goes into it, right? So why are you gonna open a restaurant that's gonna make $1.5 million a year when you can do one that does 7? That's the business end of it, right? Like, I've been crushing myself for God knows how long doing these little tiny restaurants. I do have a wife and 2 kids, like, they are gonna be going to college soon. We do have people to take care of. So it was, the past 5 years have definitely been, really, really fast paced. Things just moving back and forth, and, I love the idea of someday returning to doing a tasting menu restaurant. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
That's good because like there's certainly some times where I love just like take me on a journey. Like I'm coming in with that mindset and I want that. But I would say it's less often do I want that versus more of, oh man, I really feel like lamb and I want lamb.
Yeah, but that's the same problem that we had at Lebec Finn is after a while, when you look at the reservations every night, it was birthday, birthday, anniversary, anniversary, congratulations, anniversary, birthday. Laurel became the same thing. Everybody after
The
it
destination.
it's a destination restaurant that people are gonna go to once a year, which is fine, but then we also run into the problem of creativity. People show up, they're like, "Oh, last year I was here, we had this beautiful, I don't know, tile fish dish. We'd love to try that again." It's like, "Well, that was a year ago. Like, we're moving."
That's not how this works.
Yeah, exactly, like, so it's hard. It's like, I don't know how to find that balance. If you're gonna have a fine dining restaurant like that, how do you get people to go in every month at least? Because it's not happening.
Right, and there can be some fun that leaches out of that at that point, right? And so I think one of the things I hear almost as a subtext is, at some point there's a breaking point where something, fine dining stops feeling inspiring and starts to feel a little bit like you're on this treadmill, just kind of going. And like how when that happens, obviously that's where you need to like I something needs to change, right? When because then, you know, it's a high stress environment with sometimes it starts to feel like decreasing returns on the amount of work and care you're putting in. And that starts to sap your inspiration and your joy. And then things start falling apart. How do you tell the difference in there when you're inside it? What were some like points where you were like, "Oh, this happened," or "I'm thinking this something needs to change." Help us identify because it's sometimes really hard when you're in the middle of it to realize that you're actually experiencing that problem.
I mean, I think that coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people were very excited to celebrate.
Yeah.
When Laurel was back online, full tilt after the pandemic, we were getting killed. We were packed every day of the week, and it faded quickly though, and we went right back to the normal schedule of, all right, we're gonna do 25 people during the week, 44 people Friday and Saturday, and then it was like, all right, that's a problem. Next thing you know, it's 20 people during the week and 35 people on Friday and Saturday. And we're like, okay. The neighborhood started changing a little bit after the pandemic. They started taking away a little bit of the amenities that we used to have. Like we used to have valet parking provided by the city. We used to have street cleaners every weekend. We used to have officers posted at every other block just to make the neighborhood feel safe.
Yeah.
All that stuff was taken away. All that was taken away, and you saw, like, the slow decline of our neighborhood, which obviously in turn affected all the restaurants, which sucked. So we tried to pivot and be like, "All right, we're not getting people outside of the neighborhood to come down to us anymore. How do we endear ourselves to the people in the neighborhood? Well, we have this beautiful restaurant. Let's flip it over and see if we can do a really nice wine bar." And actually that went well for some time. Um, but, at the end halfway through 2025, our lease was up at the end of 25. So we had to make a decision, and it was like, "All right, let's see if we can start finding spaces somewhere else in some other neighborhood." Um, and honestly, I just wish I had the bandwidth to have put more effort into that. I didn't. We were still crazy busy at the other 3 restaurants. So, t after a while, it was just like, we're gonna have to let this kinda play itself out and then figure out something down the road.
And regroup.
And honestly, for me, I was like, I could use a little bit of a break. I could actually use it's been 12 years of this restaurant. The other 3 restaurants are doing really well. We have really great leadership out there. Um, I could use a breather and kinda let this thing fade, um, cross one thing off of my list, and, regroup and figure out what I wanna do next.
How's that gone so far? How you doing?
I've snowboarded more in the past 2 months than I have, like, in the past 25 years. It's been it's been more time with my family. I've actually gotten to catch most of my son's basketball games this year, which in the past 3 or 4 years, I probably make, like, if I'm lucky, I make, like, 5 games a year. I think I've made all 14 games this year. Um, it's, like, just more family time. um it's nice. At some point, I do wanna, like, knuckle down and start figuring out what my next move is, but, like I said, I still have 150 employees that I have to worry about at 3 different outlets, and
No, that's not nothing.
yeah, we're building another hotel with another food outlet there, which should be open in the next 18 months. But I would like to do another restaurant in Center City, Philadelphia, like, for myself.
Great. I can't wait to see what that is.
Yeah.
One of the more practical things that you ever shared publicly was the math on the Laurel reset. Fewer seats and higher check versus more seats, more volume, making it work through covers, things like, uncovering, just sharing a lot of what is going into your decision making for how you're changing concepts and how you're thinking through that. More advice for folks listening. What numbers do you look at first when you're deciding if a concept needs some kind of a reset? Is it seats? Is it labor percentage, food cost, covers, or something else? Like what are the numbers that are start to be your main indicators you're looking at?
Yeah, I just think it just becomes a Rorschach chest of, like, spectrum of math and where you want to end up. Like, what is your vision, what you wanna do? How do you figure out how, like, and that's one of the things I try to talk about with, like, younger chefs who wanna open restaurants. It's like, dude, a vision and what you wanna do is awesome, but you need to be able to apply math to it. You need to be able to say, here are the facts. I have a 2,200 square foot space to put seats in, which is going to make us, for let's just use round numbers. We're going to have 100 seats. We're going to do 2.5 turns a night. That's
Mhm.
250 people. How much money are you going to get out of each person? Do you know that number?
Yeah.
Like, you need to figure out what that number is. Is that number $50, $75, $100? Are you doing $22,000 Friday nights, or are you doing $10,000 Friday nights? Like, it's once you start, I mean, any good chef and good operator understands, like, the two biggest things, your labor needs to be under 30, your food cost needs to be under 30, and then you need to figure out operationally where everything else falls in line. So if your labor's 30, your, food cost is 30, and unfortunately your rent is 15, dude, that 15, all of that's coming directly from your bottom line. Anything that you add on after that, like, those first 2 things you need. Sure, you can go and open a pasta pizza restaurant and you can bring your food cost down to 20, 21, 22. That's great. You can open an event facility. You can bring your labor cost down to 10%, 15% as opposed to 30%. That's awesome. But what kind of space what are you trying to achieve? And it's always just kind of like, it feels like, unfortunately, I don't know if you remember growing up, like, you would get those puzzles where there's one tile missing and you just
Yeah.
have to keep moving all that shit around until you make that's literally what it is the entire time. You're just trying to move all these tiles around to figure out what this actual picture is gonna look like, and all of those pot tiles just represent a different cost that you have to be able to attack.
I want to shift a little bit for the rest of our time to get a little bit more personal
Okay.
with you. We'll start with some good stuff, right? You won Top Chef in season 11. You
Yeah.
know, it's one of the things that you're known for. If you Google you, it's one of the top things that comes up, which is congratulations. That is no small feat. A lot of people love watching that season, and I'm more curious about what did something like that do for you personally in terms of it changing anything about you? You've won that the next morning. How did you feel? What changed about you going forward? And then what did that experience change you or not change you as you went on in your journey?
Multifaceted question.
Yes.
What it changed about me? Not much. Um, I think I was fortunate at the time that I had Laurel working and open. I guess you have to understand the timing of the filming compared to the airing. We filmed from May until July. And then we had to film the finale in October. I had signed the lease on the space in August and opened the restaurant in November. Yeah, they didn't air until October, and it aired from October until February. So from November until February, like, Laurel was already open. We were going, we were doing all the things, and everybody who came to the restaurant were like, "Tell us what happens. Tell us what happens. Did you end up?" And it's like, listen, we signed a very good NDA. I'm not allowed to say shit. So I already had things going, which was nice because, as we were talking about earlier, when I wanted to, I can go into my little tiny kitchen. I could hide my phone and I could just work at my restaurant. And I'm doing my job. I'm taking care of my family. I'm doing what I need to do my job every day. All the other extracurricular noise going on in media, I didn't have to pay attention to that.
Mm.
But like most things in the world, whenever you do anything worthwhile, half the people in the world are going to tell you how awesome you are. The other half of the people are going to tell you how terrible you are.
Yeah.
So I took a giant step back from social media. I immediately erased Facebook. I immediately erased Twitter. The only thing I'm still on anything is Instagram. That's just my name, Nicholas Elmi on Instagram. Um, because I can refine that, and people who want to say or do or contact me, I have control over that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely, like, made me shy away from the public a little bit more than I thought it would. I don't think I took into consideration how many people actually watched Top Chef. I was like, "Oh, cool, a cooking show. I'm good at cooking. I'll go do that."
Yeah.
And people take that shit seriously. Like
Oh yeah. It's
really seriously. It's like, "Oh, oh, this is a game show, guys. We're in a game show where we get to cook food." Like, everybody relax. Everybody relax. But listen, they do good editing and they put you in situations that create a tremendous amount of intensity, and they do a good job of that show. I haven't actually seen it recently, but I'm assuming they're still doing well. When it changed about I feel like it did make me a little bit more introverted. It did kinda shelter myself from public and just kinda tried to spend all my time at work, and if I wasn't at work, I'd spend time with my family. Um, I didn't want to be one of those top chefs that went out on the world tour and was just cooking in a different city every weekend and making money by doing appearances and sponsorship stuff. No, I wanted to be one of the top chefs that actually was a chef. There's plenty of them out there
Right.
who turn around, they take that, they use that as a stepping stone to something better in the chef world. Now you can either be a celebrity or a chef. I don't think doing yeah, it's really hard to have your foot in both. There are very, very, very few people who I mean, there's what, a handful of people who actually own really nice restaurants and are celebrity you're talking about Gordon Ramsay and Bobby Flay, and it's about it,
Right.
right? That's 2. I would say the next closest one for me would be Stephanie Izard, right? Like, her restaurants are great in Chicago, and she still manages to make TV appearances and do all this other cool shit, but, like, I can't really name anybody else who's successful in both areas. So,
Right.
I knew which lane I wanted to go because I don't know if you've ever seen me on TV. Not a huge TV guy, not a great TV personality. Um, I don't think my disposition and my energy translates into fun TV. That's just and I'm fine with that. I'm completely okay with that. Um, so I think that it's, again, and I just wanted to take the opportunity that I was given and try to capitalize on it and try to make a better life for my wife and my kids. Again, we had the documentary come out, we had the restaurant open, we had Top Chef all happen at the same time. I was like, let's just figure out a way to keep this going. How do I do that? Well, there's one thing that I'm really, really good at, and that's cooking. I'm a very, very, very good cook. So I'm just going to keep doing that, and that's going to eventually pay off. So we did, we opened up a bar a couple of, like the year later. The year after that, we opened up a brasserie. Then the pandemic happened, but that allowed me to transition into opening these 3 restaurants that I have now. And that company's continuing to grow. So I think I'm very happy with the way things worked out. There are definitely small things that I wish I did differently here and there, but for the most part, like, very happy person.
God, I'm so happy to hear that because you've seen plenty of people who have had those famous moments and have not, turned it into something that turns into a happy story. So I'm happy to hear that. I think it could lead also into, talking about another topic which I know you rarely get asked about, and that is sobriety. So you stopped drinking in 2017, right?
Yeah.
And you've been open about how it changed kind of your energy, mornings with your kids, even how you think about hospitality. What did sobriety change about your leadership inside the kitchen, specifically in conflict, stress, and decision making?
I think it knocked a little bit of the intensity out of me, and I'm not as reactionary. I'm a much I think I'm a lot calmer. I'm a lot more focused and clear-headed, a lot healthier. Like, I used to be relatively heavy. Um, I immediately lost 20 pounds when I quit drinking, and then
Wow. Like over how long?
in probably 2 months, and then I continued where I mean, I think right now I weigh like 185, 187. At my height, I weighed 226. So I immediately lost like 20 pounds, and then I was like, "Oh, man, I wanna get under 200." So then I started working out, and it's been a pretty cool journey over the past 8 years. Um, it's when you're a chef and you get home late at night, you know, I would get home and everybody would be asleep. And then I would drink a couple glasses of wine, pass out, and by the time I could wake up, everybody's already out of the house. So you go through like your entire week of not being able to see your wife, your kids, unless it was through FaceTime or text or so that was really kind of the main point for me. Also, like as far as like alcoholism goes, like on the scale of like 1 to 10, I wasn't like a raging alcoholic. It's probably like a five, it was like a 5 or a 6. It was definitely a problem that I needed to address. Um, and I could have just pulled back and been like, all right, I'm just going to drink 2 days a week, or I'm only going to
Yeah.
drink one. But that's really not my personality. I'm very black and white, all or nothing kind of guy. So I was just like, all right, I'm done. That's it. I literally just woke up one morning and it was September 19th. It was just over.
And I've heard that from many folks who have taken up sobriety. Like, there's like, I just woke up one day and I said,
Yeah. I wasn't a mean drunk. I was a very happy drunk. I wasn't doing anything incredibly stupid. I wasn't doing anything like detrimental. I was a drunk, you know? So it had to end. And since then I'm a lot more organized. I have a lot more energy. I have a lot more bandwidth when it comes to being able to deal with, not only my team, but the customers. But more importantly to me, like, I'm a better husband. I'm a better dad. It's been pretty great. And I don't see myself ever going back. There are times where I'm like, I kind of miss having wine with dinner, but
yeah,
that's not that's not something that's going like, I'd much rather continue living the life that I'm living right now, being able to do all the things that I do at 45 years old, than go back to that. Just seemed weird. And on top of that, like, one, I will say you find out very quickly who your actual friends are once you stop drinking.
mhm. I've heard that so many times from my friends who have.
Anybody out there who wants to quit drinking, just so you know, you lose about 75% of your friends like that. Like,
uh,
think of all the people who you go and hang out with and you hang out with at the bar. You're not gonna see those people again, and that's the end of that story. They're not gonna come hang out with you at your house. They're not gonna come hang out with you at the gym. They're not gonna wanna go for a walk with you. They wanna go to the bar. They're gone. So that was pretty hard, but
yeah.
you find another community, and especially when I am open about it, I get a lot of people, especially in the industry, who reach out to me online and not ask for advice, ask for just like a little bit of a push, ask for like a little bit of, how do I get through this? How do I make sure this happens? How do I set up these guardrails? And that's what it's about. It's about figuring out a way to set yourself up for success, which means setting up some really good guardrails for yourself and protecting yourself. And my wife was amazing in the beginning of being able to, like, help me clear the house, help me clear myself mentally, help me just get over those little hurdles to, like, start being able to string days together and not feel like it's like this such a big hill that we're climbing, especially if you're climbing it with somebody else. It just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, and a lot of people are climbing that hill. I think more and more, you're seeing people, just choose to stop drinking, and it brings up kind of something that's going on in the restaurant industry where, the NA movement is just growing a ton, and there seems to be so much more options and better quality options in the NA world for people who still want to have the taste of a beer, and you're not reaching for duels or something like that. There's some good craft non-alcoholic beer, and same thing with kind of mocktails, things like that. On the beverage side, you've talked about being disappointed when no alcohol only meant like soda, and you've pushed your teams to make zero proof feel just as thoughtful and fun. What what's your actual standard for a serious NA program at a restaurant? Like, what has to exist on the menu, and what training does the staff need so that it doesn't just become an afterthought that people just don't think about?
You have to treat it as an extension of your cocktail program. You don't treat it as something different. You don't treat it as something that you have to do. You treat it as, hey, these are the 14 cocktails that we offer. 4 of them don't have booze in them. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you treat them any differently? There's still something that represents you, it represents your restaurant, it represents your brand. Why would you want it to be substandard? Why would you wanna just say, "Oh, we're gonna just shoot soda out of a gun for you. We're gonna make you this cocktail that has 5 different ingredients and spritz and these egg whites and all this bullshit," right? And then when you ask for something non-alcoholic, I'm gonna give you soda water with a lime in it. It doesn't make any sense. Everything you do at your restaurant represents you and your restaurant. So your plates, your silverware, your appetizers, your wine list, your cocktails, your non-alcoholic cocktails, your beers, the decor, everything. So that just has to be part of it. So once we stop treating it as something that is an additional thing that we have to do and just part of the cocktail menu, like, that's the first step, is making your team recognize that, like, this is a need. We're going to fulfill that need. It has to be thoughtful. It has to be fun. Just like we're going to offer this take of a martini. We're going to offer this take of a paper airplane, but don't put any booze in it. Done.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Challenge your people. Make it a challenge. There are so many things that you can do out there. And if people come back to you with, "Oh, we're gonna mix this soda with this bitter," and then it's like, "Nah, man, like, do it." Like, actually put some thought into it and do it.
That's good. I appreciate that because I've definitely appreciated the improvement there because I don't always want a drink, but I want
No.
I want an artisanal experience still that doesn't have alcohol, and I've been thankful that I've seen an upturn in that.
What I'm surprised at is, like, how long we just accepted
Yeah.
O'Doul's
Yeah.
as, like, I'm so happy that they finally figured out non-alcoholic beers,
Yeah.
and they're fucking fantastic. And I'm like, what were the people at O'Doul's doing for so long that they made such a shitty beer for so long?
It's so bad.
And everybody was just like, "Okay, that's what it is." It's like, dude, it took them like 2 years, and now you have, like, 5 or different brands of non-alcoholic beer that are fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I'm always impressed whenever I hear the founder story of Athletic Brewing, for instance, which is one of the first big mainstream NA beers, right? Where their beer tastes good.
Yeah, like, legit good.
I always blows my mind because it's like the guy who started it, he wasn't like some big brewer guy. He was just a guy who's like, why are there no other options here? And someone's
Exactly.
got to be able to do something about this. And almost the brewing challenge of making a non-alcoholic beer taste good was almost even a harder challenge than making alcoholic beer taste good. And it's just one of those things that I'm with you. I'm always like, what took them so long? Because this is just you've just created a market. Anyway, yeah,
I mean, honestly, it is one of the best things you can do in business is find a market deficiency and exploit it.
100%.
Figure it out, make it better, and exploit it.
So I guess I want to end with I thank you, for your time. This has been a really meaningful conversation to me. I've loved your perspective on a lot of this, and I hope a lot of other restaurateurs have found some nugget here. I'm sure they have of of something they either see in themselves, something that they wish was different, something where they're like, oh man, I understand that. What advice would you give your 20 to 25-year-old self just starting out in the restaurant world? Like, basically, what would you tell another up and coming chef who wants to eventually run their own restaurants? Like, what do they need to know that you had to learn the hard way?
Pick your mentors wisely would be number 1. Make sure that, like, if you wanna go work at restaurant X, because it is 3 Michelin stars or whatever, James Beard, make sure you meet the people who not only are in charge, but the people who are gonna be working with directly every single day. What's their personality? How do they treat the staff? What's their idea about the job, and not just this job, but the job in general, how it relates to the world.
Mm.
I wish I knew that better. I worked at great restaurants. I really, truly did.
Yeah.
I wished I worked with better people. I wish I wasn't so far behind the 8 ball that I didn't have growing up, my father left when I was, like, 3. My stepfather was a wonderful man, but he was so occupied with work, like, we didn't have a fantastic relationship. I never had, like, a male mentor figure growing up.
Mm.
And, I still don't. Now I have a really fantastic group of friends who all own their own businesses, are all in different disciplines, and are all different personalities, and we rely on each other a lot. But I never had that growing up, and I never had that through my 20s. I feel like it would have helped me get the things I wanted to accomplish a little bit faster. That would be the only thing that I think that I kinda regretted in my career. When I was younger, I was so excited to go to work for Georges Perrier. I was so excited to go work in New York City. I just took whatever job I could take. I was so excited to go work in Paris, and I worked at Guy Savoy, and it was great, but it was like, I had absolutely no relationship with anybody there. You show up to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, you work until midnight, and then you go home, you sleep, and you go back to work. That was it. You don't fucking talk. Um, that would be 1. 2, it's like you have to be incredibly uncomfortable. You have to be incredibly comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get that through your head, especially when you're building your business and starting out, because everybody wants to give you advice. Everybody wants to tell you how things should go. Everyone wants to tell you how great and or terrible you are. And if you're not firm in your belief in what your vision is, you can get rattled pretty easily. But if you're confident in yourself and you're confident in what you do, and you stick to it. Just keep plugging away and keep going. Like, you're the one who put the work in. You're the one who's going to accomplish it. You're the one who's there every day. You're the one that knows what's right and what's wrong with the business. You're the one that can fix it. Don't listen to anybody else. Do what you got to do. It's hard to do that. It's hard to sit around. Even now, like, been doing this long enough. I started cooking when I was 14. So we're talking about 30, 31 years now. I like to think I have thick skin, but again, we work in a subjective field that we get reviewed every single day.
Yeah.
Every day I can go online and I can see the, 10 5-star reviews and then the 2-star review. Which one do you think I'm going to focus on?
Oh, the two. 100%.
Exactly. It's like, how do you shake yourself of that? One, don't do it in the morning. Wait till you do it till midday. That's what my therapist taught
Don't
me.
start your day like that. Man.
Yeah, no. Don't start your day with the numbers. Don't start your day with the reviews. That's a midday situation type of thing. Two, understand that everybody wants to say something. You know what I mean? It's how you filter it in your own head and how you present it to yourself. Because you can convince yourself of anything, and you're going to be your own worst critic. Don't let anybody else be your worst critic.
Nick Elmi, that is some words of wisdom that I think we're just gonna let people sit with. That was an amazing way to land the plane. Thank you so much for your vulnerability. Thank you so much for your story, for sharing that with us, and thank you so much for continuing to share your food with the world, or at least with Philadelphia. and I appreciate you you taking the time out of your day to sit here with me and talk about a lot of the things that really are what real life is about. It's not just food and drink and wake up. It's there's so much that goes into this that takes our soul and our passion, and you got to care. And it's clear that you care. So thank you for this time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy, man. Keep grinding, man. I love what you guys are doing. Keep it going.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. Restaurant Reset is sponsored by Genius for Restaurants, the modern point-of-sale system from Global Payments. Genius helps you reach your most important goals, whether that's simplifying your operations, speeding up your checkouts and table turns, easily expanding into new locations, or building loyalty with guests. To find out more, visit globalpayments.com/genius.